Welcome to the Romania River channel and my first impressions of Guardians of Ember, a ARPG in the Diablo 2 / Path of Exile genre with heavy MMO elements, so to say. The game itself is currently at full release and it is priced for the basic package, which gives you a mount and backspace and stuff like that, at around 14.99 euros or 14.99 US dollars. Regional equivalents in the UK, I'd assume, and elsewhere. Now, the game itself has quite a few servers available, but it automatically detects where you're from. For example, I have to play on the UK one. Kind of a bit of a disappointment for me personally, because with the UK server I did get random disconnects at times, which have gotten better over the last couple of weeks, but well, when it happens, you're booted out of the game completely or the game hard crashes, which with its current design philosophy, so to say, is not exactly ideal, because you get booted out, you lose progress unless you made it to a checkpoint, pretty much like in Diablo 2. Enemies respawn, instances reset, stuff like that. Instances being dungeons, which you can get into either alone or with groups. With scalable difficulties you can select at the beginning to get better rewards or have better rewards with worse enemies, stuff like that. First time I actually jumped into a dungeon, I was like, I can do it harder difficulty. Nope. Got kicked out like a bitch. Now, before we get too into it, settings pretty much a given. It runs fairly well on my system with the settings I have here. Most people could probably push it up much higher, considering my Fury Nitro, while superb in its own way, does have issues. One slight issue though, with windowed mode, depending on resolutions you manually select, because you can't select fixed ones. If you're not in the window, so to say, for example, set the game to start, then Alt tab and do something else in another window, or click another window, odds are you won't connect to the server, i.e. you don't get to the server select window, which is this one, or if you already have saved settings, directly in your character select, it goes connection failed or something of that description. That's one of the weirder glitches with the game, to be honest, but there aren't many glitches, so Now, in terms of characters, pretty much fixed in certain degrees. Like for example with humans, you can have a decent amount of flexibility, both male, female, and classes overall. But if, for example, you want to play something like a dwarf, well, like I do, there's only one gender. Classes are unrestricted, but only one gender is kind of weird. They kind of went with a Terra approach to this thing, in so much as dwarves are male only and Nea are female only, and they're, well, shall we say, an acquired taste visually if you're a wee bit squeamish about little girls running around with big fuck-off weapons. Because I did see a couple, and it is kind of disconcerting at certain points. I haven't played Terra at all, actually, so it's kind of something new for me personally. Now getting the game proper, I'll show you guys general control scheme and progression and stuff like that. It's basically pretty much run-of-the-mill in terms of progression. Kill shit, do quests, get loot, upgrade, stuff like that. The character control, well, the perspective itself is isometric. As far as I have played, I haven't dicked around with any cameras. We get rewards. These are pretty much seasonal, because right now it's the 11th of December, they have an advent calendar. But they do have daily rewards regardless. Now, as I was saying, isometric view, control is via WASD and the mouse button. Basically similar in a sense to Path of Exile. What it doesn't have from Path of Exile, for example, is the progression system. It is pretty much class-based locked. Which, in one way, it does kind of give a wee bit more variety and replayability to the game, but in other ways it kind of borks things for me personally, because yeah, there is a secondary class option, but I haven't really played that much per se. I've played about 5 to 10 hours at the current time, and well, personally the game isn't that fun for me. I've gotten a wee bit too used to how should I put this? Path of Exile's at least higher degree of freedom. By the way, backspace is pretty ample with the 14, well, 15 per se, euros or 15 US dollar option. But even without that, right, if the later on release a basic bitch option, so to say, basically use this to automatically select stuff, recycle them, get maps. Not much problem. Then use those maps to craft various objects. The main problem with the game itself is that at the current time they really didn't, how should I put this, get the grind amounts right. It feels really rather grindy. You're almost always facing enemies which pose issues, so to say. Like, for example, if you get a awesome quest, like for example I have to do way the hell up here, and yeah, some of the quests have interesting tidbits which are quite interesting. Sometimes the amount of money you get from your quests and random traveling around is insufficient to get to the level you need, and things are pretty much level based, so enemies even 1 or 2 levels higher than you will pose a significant issue. They can kick your nuts in quite severely if you're not careful. And yeah, in terms of healing and stuff like that, well, as far as I've seen, game seems to have a wee bit more balance towards the MMO bits. I've seen players running around in groups with 1 or 2 DPSing and the other healing, keeping stuff pretty much in balance. So this isn't the sort of game where you can go run about like in, for example, Path of Exile and more or less chug potions down like a motherfucker. In this one you actually have to be social, make friends, collaborate, you know, stuff like that. And the RNG part kinda borks things over a bit in terms of the loot. These are more or less nitpicks though, because they will eventually get... You can't jump over that, okay. They can be adjusted fairly easily with basic patches and just adjusting variables, but at the current time, yeah, it's an issue. Not having decent weapons, not having decent armor, having to rely on others, and there's also the problem that now it's early days, it's pretty easy to get, for example, groups, if you want to do it. But later on, when things start going a wee bit more elite, i.e. you have to have X amount of damage, X amount of health, stuff like that, yeah, then it'll be a problem for new guys. Hopefully by that point... Chaos Provocateur. Level 15, I am close enough to level 15. Okay, I got him. Nice. Those are random public events which respawn with a fair amount of frequency. so you really don't have to worry too much about them. They're not, at the current time at least, like for example you get in Guild Wars 2 where you have to be there, or they'll be done and you'll miss out on rewards or stuff like that. Nope. The game itself isn't that difficult if you fight enemies of your own level, but therein lies the problem with it. And with the quests, you're almost always pitched against enemies that are either equal or slightly better tier than you are, so yeah, problems. Now, besides the whole leveling up, grinding, getting loot, there's also basic leveling up of parameters, so to say, or attributes. Each is pretty much useful for your character. There's no junk stats, so to say. Professions you can take up quite easily. Fishing in and of itself is a pain in the ass because you always need bait. Special outfits are pretty much, as you can imagine, either earned or purchased for premium. I'm enlightened. Yeah, sure. Iron keys, golden keys, and enchanted keys unlock extra, how should I put this, rewards in dungeons. They can be seen as a wee bit of a, how should I put this, loot box type deal, but in general, the majority of the rewards come from the dungeon itself and from the chests within the dungeons, which do not require keys to unlock. The keys themselves unlock just an extra item. They could be very good items or they could be completely worthless. So far, in my experience, I've only gotten 2 items out of about 8 dungeons I've run. Yes, I've run quite a few dungeons in 5 hours. Well, technically speaking, it's 3 dungeons about 8 times, but besides the point. As far as that goes, yeah, it's kinda worthless to bother so much about it. There is a slight chance, and the tier of items you can get via chest can be a wee bit better than you get in the dungeon, but odds are RNGs will not be kind to you. Besides that, what else can I say? The game itself, for what it is very well done. The developers have spent quite a lot of time crafting the game. The characters are well developed in terms of visuals. The story itself is kind of forgettable. You basically start off fighting an army of goblins and then the plot thickens. So basic fantasy trope, one thing leads to another and oh boy, things get crazy. There are also side quests which you can do for item rewards and fluff pieces here and there, so there is quite a wee bit of depth to the game in terms of exploration, because those side quests are not always found within the areas where you get your main quest. For example, I went running about the countryside in the first zone and I found a guard requiring help cleaning out a house, which led to another thing, which led to another thing, you know, sort of organic stuff, which rewards a more curious soul, and which can help pad out your levels, which is quite important in the game. In terms of mechanics, I kind of wish there was a wee bit more flexibility here, but probably the secondary class will open up a wee bit more, not so much flexibility as extra flavor to each class in part. This is, after all, a first impressions video and it's not a full review, so yeah. For my part though, as it currently stands, the game is not fun. Pillars of Eternity, yeah, I have fun in it because, well, it gives me the option to basically create battle mages in the actual sense of the word, i.e. a tank that spews out spells. And Cornelone knows that's what I pretty much ended up with at the end of my Path of Exile run. In terms of story, if the storyline was a wee bit more engaging for me personally, for other people it might be more interesting, yeah, that could be a decent enough hook to get through the grind, because, as I said, side quests, main quest itself, well, non-voiced, is fairly ample in terms of information. And as you guys saw earlier, there are item bits to collect here and there, which give you some information about the critters you're fighting. So overall, if you're a fan of the ARPG genre and want an MMO within the genre, it is quite an interesting proposition for you. It's worth taking a look, and while I can't recommend it as a first option, if you manage to actually burn through, for example, Path of Exile, and you're not into the whole competitive bit, you know, competing for unique cosmetic options, you just want to see the storyline and then maybe grind up as best you can in terms of items, and then you're done, this could be an interesting proposition for you at 15 USD/euros. If you're a Diablo fan and you're coming from more pay-to-play games, well, it's fairly cheap, and while the MMO part is kind of annoying, I did have one dude running behind me for about 5 minutes going, "Fight me, brah, what are you, a expletive deleted bastard?" And yes, broken English. While that's aside, there's also the emergent element where you can basically team up with other players and have fun that way. God knows, from my experiences in The Division, for example, that was one of the better bits that actually kept me playing for about 20 hours more. So if that can appeal to you, this game's also an interesting proposition. For everybody else, if it ever goes on sale for like 80%, well, it's the price of a burger and it's decently fun. It will give you at least a movie's worth of entertainment, when the movie is like the Lord of the Rings trilogy. If you're not in the ARPG genre per se, or loot hoarding in general, yeah, basically stay away from it, not your game. Thank you for watching, or more precisely surviving up until this point, because gods know the editing's kinda interesting and my voice has a melodic tone to it. If you like what you saw, feel free to hit the subscribe button, like button. It does help out the statistics of the channel, gets more visible, you know, stuff like that. And to be honest, at one point I would like to actually make this a job, so I can do better content with better quality, more games, more coverage, you know, stuff like that. Take care.